Okay, good evening, everyone. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll open the meeting up. Public comment. Anyone has any questions regarding the front end agenda items only? Just raise your hand, stand, state your name, and ask a question. Okay, we have no public comment. This evening we're going to introduce our student rep, and I think our superintendent's going to make that introduction, and then we'll take the oath.
Yeah, so we are very fortunate to have Kai Roper with us this evening. Voted on by the student population, I believe, in the spring, right? So we've known that you'd be joining us for a while now, so we're thankful that you're here this evening. So Kai Roper is going to take the oath of office and get sworn in.
Okay.
Welcome aboard, Kai.
So I'm just going to have you, Kai, at this point, just raise your right hand, and I'm just going to have you do the oath, which I printed out for you. And I'm just going to wait until Miss Welch can take your photo. And I'll have you
go around this way.
Look at the board here. You can start.
Okay, sorry. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my position as student representative for the Highland Central School District according to the best of my abilities.
So as just a point of information, New York State implemented something this year where all boards of education would have a student rep on their board. So across the state, every school district needs to have a student rep. We're a little unique here in Highland that we've been doing it for probably 10 or 15 years now, so we were ahead of the curve on that. So we welcome you aboard, Kai, and we offer you the opportunity each board meeting to offer any insights from the buildings or from the student population. And from time to time, the board members will ask you some questions too. So feel free to chime in as you see fit. Welcome aboard.
Yes, again, Kai, on behalf of the entire Board of Education, welcome aboard. You're our eyes and ears to the whole district. So there's a lot of things that the board members don't know what's going on down in the elementary school, you know, from your own peers. So you bring that forward to us, and we welcome that, and we ask you to participate in our meetings. Okay. So at times we'll be asking you what you think of certain items that we're talking about. So congratulations and welcome aboard. Okay, we have special presentation this evening. We have the leaders of the pack, and I will start with the elementary school.
All right, so Christian, come on up and join me for a second here. Oh, there she is. Okay. So Miss Fasano is obviously here. She recommended you. Okay. So Miss Fasano and Miss Hallett said Christian is very astute to other students who are in need of help or assistance. Regularly will engage in conversations and will always display a positive attitude. He is the epitome of displaying our PBI statement. Coach S said that Christian is a fantastic student in PE. He does a wonderful job giving his best effort in all activities. Well deserved. Ms. Petrocha, Christian always comes to the library with a smile on his face. He is thoughtful and kind to his peers and is always willing to help his classmates find books in the library. And Ms. McCaffrey, Christian always comes to music making the best choices. He always has his hushkey up. What does that mean?
It's like this.
Ah, okay, learning something new. Okay. Husky up first. Tries his best and is a positive influence on others in music. Way to go, Christian. Yeah, we're going to get a picture. So, obviously, the elementary schools. There you go. Okay.
Has it? Do you want me to do it since I'm right here? Sure. You'd like to?
I can do it.
All right,
So
I have the
do it?
camera person since you.
We'd like to invite Layla Leahy to come join us. So we have lots of nice things that many of her teachers share with us. I'm only going to share a few with you, and then I'll give you the rest to take home with you. So Mr. Brenny said, she's very kind and always has a smile on her face when she enters the room. I can count on her always having her work done and ready to go. She is one of the rare 8th graders that I can truly trust to do the right thing. Mr. Peterson said, in our math class, Mrs. Jansen and I have noticed Layla emerging as a group leader at her table. She's always on task, advocates for herself, and gives assistance to others. She's always respectful and responsible. We are happy to have her in class. Mr. Early and Mrs. Bowman said that Layla is a very kind and compassionate person. She always leads by example and gives 100% in everything she does. Her work ethic and exuberance will take her very far in life. She is the epitome of what this award represents. We could not think of a more deserving person. Congrats, Layla, and keep up the great work.
Okay, high school.
Good evening, everybody. I have the pleasure to introduce Raquel Moreros, an awesome student here at the high school. As you can see, Raquel just came from a game on the brand new soccer turf, and you guys won, correct?
Yep, 4-1.
4-1. Definitely a great way to start the year on the turf, and here present you. I do have a few blurbs from current and past teachers to talk about Raquel and all the amazing things that she does here at the school. Dr. Scrow, who is currently a chemistry teacher, correct? Raquel is a diligent worker that brings a positive, enthusiastic demeanor to her schooling and learning process. She is meticulous in her approach, and she doesn't miss a beat with her upbeat demeanor with her friends in class. Coach Palmatier, who is your varsity girls soccer coach, she shares Raquel is not only a stellar student, but she is also a stellar athlete. She gives 110% when on the soccer field and is always the first to offer a helping hand to a teammate or the coach. She is also the first to grab equipment. She goes above and beyond, not only to be the best player she can be, but the best person as well. She reflects often on how she can excel and do better, which is just one of her positive characteristics. When she isn't on the soccer field, she can be found staying after for extracurricular clubs such as yearbook, studying for college chemistry, and AP history. Raquel is kind, hardworking, reliable, and an overall diligent individual. Fellow teachers from the elementary school have approached me and asked how she is doing, knowing that I'm her coach, and would comment on how she is such a wonderful person. As her coach, I am proud to watch her grow on and off the soccer field. I wish you all the best. Mr. Miller, former social studies teacher of Raquel's. Raquel is a hardworking young woman that puts forth her best effort in all that she does. Her genuine care for others and desire to learn benefit the class that she's a part of. Raquel consistently exemplifies integrity and sets a positive example for her classmates and teammates alike. Ms. Trapani for math. Raquel never stops working hard, even having Algebra 2 the last period of the day. She's always coming to class, willing to solve problems and persevere. She is always engaged in class and is eager to participate and work collaboratively with her classmates. She is truly a pleasure to have in class. And that was from Ms. Trapani. And for myself, as a father in the Highland Youth Soccer Program, I like to call Raquel Coach. because she has dedicated a lot of time to the youth program here in Highland, and has personally coached my boys up at the field bright and early. And I know that can be very hard for a teenage girl in high school, and I appreciate all the hard work that you do to show the game of soccer to my boys. So thank you for that. And then one more for Mr. Reynolds. Congratulations.
Hold on, Mom. Wait.
One more.
Yes, we're gonna get a better picture.
Most important one.
Get up close.
Yeah.
Come on.
Don't get me in. Don't be shy.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Again, congratulations to all our leaders of the pack for your hard work, dedication, and to the athletes, good luck in your season. Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda items. Yeah. Yeah, we can, we've got a lot of work to do.
Congratulations, all the leaders of the pack.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, we have our consent items from FA1 to C.3. Again, as in the past board meetings, if you have any item you want to pull out, any item you need clarification, any questions in general, before we move it, you can ask those questions right now.
I just had a quick question. Game day support staff, is that like timekeeper
I
for
believe
basketball?
so.
I don't recall it being phrased that way. That's what I was just
I
wondering.
believe that's what it was.
Any other questions? Okay, can I have a motion to move those consent items forward? Motion by Mike, second by Jen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? So passed.
Before we move on, I just wanted to say thank you to Phyllis Lettery. I know we'll honor her at the end of the year, but 22 years of service is a long time.
Yeah.
And she's been a wonderful employee at that middle school, right?
She's gonna
Thank
be
you.
missed.
To be missed, yeah. Okay. Under curriculum and instruction, principal's report, elementary school.
How's it going, everyone?
The one thing that I have to like edit kind of during the fire prevention week, which was last week, I think I failed to mention Clintondale because they did join Highland, and they brought a few firefighters and hooked up. So I know that I took pictures of them, but then I didn't I just realized wait, hold on, they're in the pictures, but they're not in the report. So thank you to Clintondale Fire Department. They, like I said, they hooked up to the hydrant, so every single kindergarten through second grader was able to spray the hose, which some didn't want to let go of the hose. But we got some future firefighters in this town for sure. I just want to, thank you to Pete and everybody else for getting that all organized. It was a huge event. The assemblies went from kindergarten through fifth grade. We had different assemblies. They provided a ton of fire extinguishers. They did not go home with the kids. They had to pick them up, and the smoke detectors. And just one last thing, and I was telling Mr. Brown before the board meeting, it was really cool because the presenters allowed me I was in gear. And so there was a lot of kids that had no idea it was me, and they were talking about how just because the fear of fire and everything else, and then you're in gear, and then when I took my mask off, they were kids were what? So kind of threw them. So it was really cool that they got me into it. So I appreciate that one. So thank you, Pete, and the rest of the crew. Any questions?
Good. Thank you, Amy. Middle school?
Okay. So I have one update and then, or one change to my report. So in my report, I wrote about the class of 54. It's supposed to be the class of 64. It was their 60-year reunion, and they were able to come on Saturday and take a tour of their high school, which is now the middle school. So it wasn't the class of 54; it was the class of 64. So I wanted to clarify that. My math was just a number error, but that was lovely as well. Very nice to touch base with those folks. And then the other update I have is we had a number of students who last year in our creative writing class were actually published in a book called The Glitch. So I'm just going to read you kind of what the premise of this. It's from Young Writers. So this was a contest, and we had a number of students who I'll read out in a second. So it says The Glitch, for this specific publication, we asked middle and high school students to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary by imagining an anomaly, something suddenly changing in the world, and write a story about the consequences. So the stories are short. And I'm going to pass this around so you can take a look at it. But I just want to give kudos to those students for, first of all, submitting their work and then also being approved. So the students who we had approved are Adriana Bernard, Alyssa Pavesi, Jonathan Youngren, Zach McPeck, Isabella Espinosa Ortiz, Jack Meyer, Charlie Alonso, Anthony McAleer, Evan Lasher. Some of these students are now in the high school, by the way. Aliana Ellsworth, Jake Griselli, Emily Ellie, Aiden Schneider, Kara Cosapoli, Finn Heverin, and Brendan Zeltman. So kudos to those students and there's a number of other, you can see in here, the table of contents, a number of other students who were published, but this is really cool. So in between the two post-its are the students wrote. So you guys, if you want to pass this around, take a look at it. And we received that copy a week or two ago. And the students also, if they wish, they got copies as well. So those are my updates. Does anybody have any questions?
I do regarding that. Is that something that you offer every year? Is that the first time that you had that many? I mean, there's a lot of students.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's
we normally don't get that many. That was something that the teachers who were teaching creative writing, or it was writers workshop, but it is basically creative writing, wanted to do. So they gathered the ones that they, then the students had to say they were willing to submit them. I believe there was also parental consent, and then so it's more than we normally get for things like this. Yes.
Good job.
Yeah.
Were you with the group during that reunion?
Yes,
tour?
I was.
And what did they think of the middle school? They were probably shocked at the changes.
Some of them were shocked. Some of them had been in there many times. One of them was a grandparent of a current student, actually. So it really varied. We got to see the cafeteria, which was their gymnasium, right? So that was shocking to some of them. The staircase that was closed off, which was also where did the staircase go? And
that's
then
always their question.
Yeah, right.
I did one of those tours once, and that was their question. Can we go in that stairwell?
And then seeing the new gym, which is not new to us, but to many of them, it was not there. They walked in, they were like, whoa, they couldn't believe it. So it was really cool. Very good day.
Anybody else? Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you.
High school, Kevin?
Good evening, all. Two very brief additions to my principal's report. Something that we have done time and time again. Ulster County Board of Elections will be here tomorrow to set up and provide the opportunity for students who are eligible and of age to get the paperwork information on registering to vote, which is very important, and serve their civic duty. So we're very thankful to Ulster County Board of Elections for always providing that opportunity for our students. Very important cause. And secondly, this one's pretty cool. Mr. Short, on October 9th last week, took the concert band over to SUNY New Paltz, and they did a side-by-side concert with the SUNY New Paltz Symphonic Band, which is really cool. They got to work with Dr. Adam Fontana over at New Paltz, along with the Canadian-British composer Dr. Peter Meechan, to where the students were able to premiere one of his compositions, Letters for Home. I received a lot of really nice emails and follow-up from parents of band students who attended the concert, very appreciative. They said it was a phenomenal experience. The kids had a great time. The level of music was superb. And we really thank Mr. Short and the music department and Ms. Adam as chair for kind of coordinating all of that and getting it together. Really cool experience. Any questions at all?
Did you accompany them?
I wish I could have. It would have been nice. Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question. The President's Challenge Scholarship Program, I know you had noted that on your report.
Yes.
How many students do we have that are in that program, do you know?
I will get back to you with an exact number. I don't want to misquote myself and give you a wrong number, so I'll get back to you with the exact
Thank
number
you.
on that.
Any other questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our director's monthly report is, some of our directors are here this evening. If you have any questions for them, shout them out.
Just a comment. I mean, we should say that we're happy that there's teams on our new field, right? Was today the first day?
Today was the first day.
And phys ed has access to those or not necessarily yet?
I think phys ed is using the turf practice field.
Okay.
Yeah. There's actually still construction happening during the day, so they're using the practice field and then the fields in the back, but shortly.
Gotcha. So on that same line, boys soccer is going to be on the field tomorrow afternoon, and varsity football Saturday at 1 o'clock.
Homecoming game.
Yes,
Homecoming.
Just a couple other comments. I appreciated Mr. Fisher's report, just getting feedback on how software is being used throughout the building, so that was appreciative. And if I could drive a bus, I'd join the ranks. But we're happy to see one at least appointed tonight, and we know we've got some other positions to fill. So keep at it, Ms. McCulloch. We know you work your magic every day.
With food service, John, everything is up and running at the middle school, right?
Yeah,
For your report.
We had the temporary serving line, but we were off food from day one.
Good, good.
Did that come in during the second week? I'm sorry.
Serving line?
Yeah.
Yeah, about a week and a half ago it came in.
Okay.
And
All right.
Dutchess restaurant came with and they put it in overnight.
Yeah.
And we were good the next day.
Wonderful to hear. We knew there was a delay.
Yes. Anybody else have any questions for our directors?
I guess just a thanks to the food service as well. I know we approved the audit reports and we had talked about it at audit committee, but just the participation being up. I know I saw a post on social media this week, I believe, just in terms of the options. And I think that's great because I think it gets parents, knowing that that's out there, seeing the pictures, it draws more attention to it. I know for me, it's a godsend that I don't have to pack lunch in the morning. So the more parents see that, I think the better off we'll do, but great job with what you're doing.
One for each school. That was the elementary. And then every couple of weeks I'll do middle and then the high school.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great job. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions for our directors? Thank you, guys. All right, student rep, Kai, I'm not sure if you're ready to give a report, but if you are,
Yes, I am.
go right ahead.
Okay, so first I'll start with my updates at the elementary school. The buddy bench there has been a huge hit. The buddy bench was a capstone project done last year by Emma Fritchie in Mrs. Saylor's Citizenship in Action class. And since it was so successful, Miss Jessica Murray and Miss Jordan Long from BOCES came down and recorded multiple students talking about the buddy bench. The students shared how they spread love, kindness, and acceptance amongst their peers in honor of National Bullying Prevention Month. They created a video of these interviews, and that can be viewed on the district's Facebook page. The elementary school will also be participating in a turkey trot to benefit type 1 diabetes research and treatment on November 15th. The school is going to partner with the organization Breakthrough Type 1 Diabetes, and everyone's dressed in a turkey-related theme that day. The students are going to learn what type 1 diabetes is and the importance of funding research for it. Each child can help fundraising efforts by joining their school's team and helping achieve a school-wide fundraising goal of $500. Mrs. Asa at the elementary school can be contacted with any questions about that. So at the middle school, or are there any questions about the elementary school updates? Okay, so at the middle school on October 1st, the 7th graders in Mrs. Ivan's health class participated in a presentation by the National Alliance on Mental Illness called Ending the Silence. The presentation educated students on the warning signs of mental illness and ways to help if a loved one is displaying signs of a mental health condition. Young adult guest speakers shared personal accounts of their experiences with mental health, and middle schoolers were taught about the warning signs for suicidal thoughts in loved ones and important information about mental health that they'll carry into the high school and beyond. Last Friday, the 7th graders took their annual trip to the walkway over the Hudson. They walked the rail trail to enjoy the beautiful sights and sounds of the changing seasons and the Hudson River. And this Friday, October 18th, the 6th graders are getting in on the fun with their own trip to the walkway over the Hudson. At the high school, we're doing Spirit Week this week, and that leads up to the homecoming game and dance on Saturday. I think Mr. Barone mentioned that the game is at 1 p.m. and it's going to be held on the turf, which will be our first football game held on the turf, I believe, not the first game though. And so we're obviously rooting for our varsity team for that. And the dance will be held in the cafeteria from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. the same day. We're doing Spirit Week. Sorry, that's what I led with. We're doing Spirit Week this week. Today was Pajama Day, tomorrow's Fall Flannels, Thursday is Dress Like a Teacher Day, and Friday is Class Colors. It's blue for freshmen, red for sophomores, white for juniors, black for seniors. Obviously, seniors get the best pick. The pep rally is taking place this Friday the 18th, and all 4 grades are going to participate in school-wide games. The opening ceremony will be a parade of athletes, and there will also be quiet classrooms open for students who want to do arts and crafts instead. The first Taste of Success lunch will be held next Thursday, October 17th. Our guest speaker will be Everett Erickson from the Ulster County Emergency Services, and he's going to teach the students about traditional emergency responders such as police, fire, and EMS, along with 911 dispatchers and other emergency management personnel. And finally, the PTSA is putting on a Brooks barbecue fundraiser on October 28th from 3 to 6 p.m. in the high school parking lot.
Order early.
Yeah.
Any questions for Kai? Thank you.
Yeah.
Very well put together first report. Okay, moving on to curriculum instructions. I believe Mr. Zimmer is not here this evening, so we'll go into human resources and people personnel. Dr. Boyd.
Good evening. Just an update on our homeschool numbers. Currently, we have 52 students. Prior to COVID, we were always at about between 35 and 40. We saw a spike during COVID, and we were up in the high 70s to 80. So we've settled kind of in the middle. We have seen a little bit of an increase in that area coming in to start the school year. We do have students who are out on medical or who are hospitalized. They receive tutoring from those programs. And one of the areas that we're trying to improve is the communication with those programs and improving their transition back to here. So I have some meetings set up over the next couple of weeks with those programs to try to improve that process, to make it a little bit easier for those students who are transitioning back in, to make it as seamless as possible and make sure we're addressing all of their needs and for the schoolwork to not be the burden as they make that transition back. So we're hopeful to just kind of improve our processes with those people and improve the communication coming from them as we set up those transition plans. And just lastly, our next direct meeting will be next Tuesday, October 22nd. It will be an in-person meeting, and they are still finalizing the time. They sent out a little survey to all the members, trying to adjust the time a little bit. There was some requests to move it up a little bit earlier in the nighttime, so they're finalizing the time. So if any board members are interested in attending, as soon as that is finalized, we can let you know. So if you do want to attend.
Any questions for Dr. Boyd?
Dr. Boyd, those students who are homebound or for whatever reason, by choice or whatever, if there's a class trip or an activity in their grade level, are they made aware as to participate? Should they want to do something, they're eligible to participate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's all dependent upon the situation, right? So if they are able to, we would love for them to attend. If they are out for whatever reason it is and they're not able to, you know, obviously if it's something that we could make up when they come back,
right?
We would
no,
love to
it's
do
just
that,
more of, you know,
we try to keep them connected, and part
they
of
still
some
have
of those,
peers, in other words, just
Right.
because they might be taught at home.
right. Oh, you're talking about for homeschool?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so a lot of those opportunities are made available to them if they do want. We have seen a little bit of an increase in some parents asking for some of those opportunities and resources, which is good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Our superintendent.
Okay, so last Wednesday, I attended the fall Mid-Hudson Catskill Council School Superintendent's meeting where we had a presentation from the State Education Department on the Blue Ribbon Commission. There will be sessions throughout the upcoming months for boards to attend. I know Ulster County School Boards Association will be hosting one. Dr. Schenker has actually also offered to come and give the board a presentation on that if you're interested in that. But I would say that the ones that are regional, if anyone is interested in going to one of those, I think they're a good thing to go and hear what the state has to say. I also attended on the 10th one of the regionalization sessions at Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES that was held either in person or virtually. So I took advantage of that. Again, regionalization does not mean merging districts. It means sharing resources across districts and finding out strengths and weaknesses and how we can learn from others and make decisions that might be more cost effective for our communities. So there's a lot of conversation going on around that topic. This Thursday, the 17th, the State DEI Leaders Meeting will be taking place, and I will be attending that virtually. I think it's held in Rochester, and so I will be on for that session. I will also have a Marist Advisory Board of Education, a board meeting with the Education Department on Thursday evening. This is a second in the series. I went to one last week as well. And next Tuesday, the Ulster County Threat Assessment session will be held at the Ulster County Public Safety Training Center in Kingston, and Dr. Boyd and I will be attending that as part of our safety plan. Dr. Boyd already talked about the first direct meeting. As you know, we've been trying to work the data requirements into the district office. So we will be attending on the 29th of October a census training, which we don't really know what that's going to entail, but it's going to be one more piece of data that we'll be collecting. Since our board meetings are now, after this meeting, once per month, I'm going to try to fill you in on things that are coming up in the next month. We have a Superintendent's Conference Day coming up on November 5th, and the principals and the curriculum director are already planning those professional development sessions for across the district. Last Friday in my update, I gave you the results of the parent cell phone survey that was sent out by building. I also gave you a copy of the draft policies that we spoke about last spring. And I also sent out a message to all of the surrounding districts to try to find out what their policies or procedures or regulations were. So I incorporated those in as well. Also included in the Friday update, the class sizes by building, and Mr. Barone asked to pull the Board of Education goals from the website. I gave those to you, which I believe he might be bringing up this evening. And this week we plan to hold the first competitions on the turf. The first one was tonight, another one tomorrow, and then Saturday's homecoming game is at 1 p.m. At 1:59 this afternoon, I got a message that our press box and grandstand were substantially complete, except for the rooftop of the press box. So they still have to put railings on that, but it does not preclude us from using the rest of the grandstand. So that's where we are as of today.
Any questions for the superintendent? Okay, thank you, Joel.
Yep.
Moving on to Board of Education new business, like Joel just mentioned, I asked him to put the Board of Education goals, the district goals, and our mission statement. Been on our website for some time. We haven't really addressed our mission statement or the Board of Education goals. So if you want to review that, I think we're going to start, moving forward to try to develop, new Board of Education goals and district goals. Under Board of Education, some of these items we've already addressed. The developed superintendent evaluation tool. We have a new tool in place the last several years. Conduct retreats and self-evaluations twice a year. We haven't done that, so we're going to try to get involved in that. get mandated training. I know our new members involved in training. There's other training availability. I know if you get on board or if you get some of the memos from state, there is training available for us. So take advantage of that. Monitor to control micromanaging. Set up long-range strategic plans for finance, programs, and services. I think we've been addressing that. Explore different ways to engage staff. I think that's an ongoing task, so we still have to be involved in engaging our staff. Seek fair and cost-effective settlements to contracts. I believe we've done that. We have HA coming up, I believe, in 25. Sorry.
No, HA's done. They're all done for a couple of years now. HA was just done last summer.
There were 2 more years to it for the next one.
So we've done our contracts. I think they're going out to 26, 27. Deliver a budget that supports education and is affordable to the public. I think we've been on task with that for a good number of years. I know this year we were told during our budget cycle in 24 that 25, 26 budget could be eye-catching to a lot of us, a little different than last year, so we have to be aware of that, and we might start that dialogue sooner than later. Under district goals, achieve academic success and excellence, incorporate quality management practices in all aspects of district and board operations, build public confidence and involvement in our schools, develop and implement a 5-year strategic plan that meets the facility, the faculty, transportation, educational, and administrative needs of the district. We've addressed some of that, but we've got to look at this and tweak it and redevelop a new set of Board of Education goals and a new set of district goals. And if you're fine with our mission statement, we can continue with that. All right, so it'll be on our agenda for the next several months and we can move forward with it.
One of the options with super eval is that boards can do self-reflection on that process. So if you're interested in doing that, we can implement that this year as well. It's no additional cost to use that tool. It's part of the superintendent evaluation tool.
I think that would be effective.
What's that?
I think that would be effective.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody have any questions in regard to that?
Thanks for putting it on the agenda.
Yes. And most districts do their Board of Education goals and district goals. It's in a public setting, so it allows the community and staff to listen to our dialogue. Old business, cell phone policy. Like our superintendent just mentioned, we had asked him at the last meeting to check area districts and present some of their district policies and what they're doing with cell phones. I think some of it was eye-catching. Some restricted cell phones totally, a bunch of districts. Some implement some code of conduct requirements for first offense, second offense, third offense. So there's a lot out there. We've also got the survey from parents. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to look through the survey. I think the survey, from what I saw, I was thinking was going to be more option 2 from parents, but it seemed like it was option 1, which is giving the teachers the ability to govern cell phones in their classroom. With that being said, and it's been ongoing for a good number of years. You know that the high school's got the green light, the red light. I mean, that's been implemented for probably way before Dr. Merck was here. So that's been in place. There's 2 different messages I'm getting. When we did the initial survey with staff members, a lot of the staff members came back and the percentages were quite high that cell phones were a distraction to the educational process in the classroom. But yet, the parents see it differently. They feel that the teachers should control the use of the cell phones in the classrooms. During COVID, we presented every student outside of kindergarten, first grade.
No, everybody.
Everybody got them?
Kindergarten, first grade.
Everybody got a
second and third
Chromebook.
got iPads.
And as Mike has mentioned in several meetings, that's what we got to get our students to utilize. When they go into higher education, it's all technology. And when they go out into the workforce, it's the same thing. There's a lot of restrictions in the workforce with cell phone use across the board. So, Ed, you want to?
Yeah, I was reading through all the comments, and I know what you saw the percentages that came back for option 1, and option 2 was behind, but not hugely behind. And as I was reading the comments, I noticed that the majority of them were because the parents wanted to have, in case of an emergency. And number 2 doesn't preclude that. Number 2 is that the cell phones are off and away, but on the students still have possession of them.
Correct.
And so in the case of an emergency, they would be accessible right away. They would just be during instructional time, the policy would be that they were off and away. So I think 2, given for the parents who did present comments, I think 2 still falls in line with those comments, and it gives the students their, it gives the parents as well as the parents can reach out to them during their lunchtime and their study halls according to 2. So given that, I think 2 falls in line with what the parents who expressed their intentions. I think we do fall in line with that, but that's just what I interpreted from what I read.
No, you're correct. I mean, I highlighted some of them. I went through them all line by line. There was a lot dealing with the emergency. There was a good number of them that felt that the cell phones were a distraction to the educational practice in the classroom. I think this is my personal take on this. If we don't move forward with an option outside of option 1, then we're not providing any kind of service to the students and staff of the district. Because I think if you're out there and you speak to a lot of staff members, I know quite a few of them that want cell phones restricted to some degree. So if we revert to option 1, we might as well just stop the discussion right now. It's current practice.
Current practice.
Correct. Let's stop the discussion right now. But I think we have to move in a direction that's going to benefit the student, staff member, and the entire district.
The majority of the parents for all 3 schools are pursuing option 1. More than 50% of every school, the parents have said they want to stick with option 1.
But then again, if you go back to the original survey, Janine, staff members overwhelmingly said that cell phones were a distraction.
So then
They're in the classroom. Parents are not in the classroom.
Correct. I'm not disagreeing. So, I think it's interesting that Valley Central not only has a policy for the students, they also have a policy for the employees. So then are we going to enforce a policy for cell phones for staff, staff, teachers, administration as well?
Absolutely. I agree with that.
I think that's a little.
It's not heavy-handed.
I think that's a little extreme.
I could say right now that we have, sitting in this room, some of us use our cell phones during the board meeting. Not a good practice.
But
when you go out in the workforce.
In this survey, what I've read and what I interpreted from this is parents want to be able to have access to their children. That is, they feel safe. With everything that is going on today, the parents want to be able to, that if their child needs to reach them or they need to reach their child, they should have that option. And if that is what our parents are saying in the school district, why are we going to say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to enforce tough restrictions on them.
Well,
I think you can see either way.
71.
I think you can see either way, right? Because I mean, you, Alan, as a first responder, you had brought up a few meetings ago that, in some instances it has proven to be detrimental, right? Like,
absolutely.
You can get a hold of your parents, and then the parents are on site before emergency personnel can react to it.
It's a proven fact.
Understood as a parent, I want to be able to get a hold of my child. I want to be able to know that they're okay, obviously. But at the same time, I think we need to make sure that we're doing what's right for the kids, not what's easy.
Just a good point, Janine and Heather. There's over 500 students in a high school. Only 71 responded with a written comment. 71 out of 505 students. So take that in half. Let's say 250 parents, only 71 responded with comments. I can't base my opinion on of course, I take it seriously that parents want to be in touch. We always want to be in touch with our students. We want to be in touch with, our family members. But if it's weighing that piece of it against what it's doing to the social, emotional, and educational piece of a child in a classroom, I'm going to lean towards that piece. Because the safety piece, again, it's very serious, but there's a lot of safeguards in place in these school districts to help that. We're not, option 2 is not taking that ability away from the student to turn, their phone is on, away. So they can easily grab it in the case of an emergency and contact whoever. We're not telling them to shut the phones off. We're not taking the phones away from them. Some districts are. We're not doing that. We're giving them the option to put the cell phone away at the start of class, use it during break, use it during your free period, use it during lunch, before and after school. So I think the ability of parents to stay in touch with their child is still there.
I understood. I was going to say I understood that option 2 was full restriction, that they were not allowed. Like for elementary school, it was to be left at home. For middle school, it was. So if you're then going to say to use them at lunch and a free period, then you're giving the students.
I think option 2 at different schools was a different thing. There were the 3 options at the middle at the high school level.
Right, but what I'm saying, but all of those are option 2 for all of them says implement full restriction.
No, option 2.
No,
Option
option
2 with the high school
during
is partial.
instructional time.
Option 2 says, so let's not talk about options, let's just talk about full restriction, partial restriction, right?
No, I'm glad you bring that up because So in the high school, I know option 2 was that during instructional periods.
I have it right here. Option 2 is implement a partial restriction at the high school where personal devices are turned off and put away during academic periods, but allowed to be used during study halls and lunch.
And to what you were saying, Alan, there is data showing that the parents themselves actually are a distraction during the class periods because they were. And again, I'm right with you. I'm concerned about my children. I want to know that they're safe. But, did you get your lunch today, honey? In the middle of an instruction, pulls them away from instruction, And there was actually a very charming comment about how one of the parents wants to reach out to the child to make sure they're having a good day. And I think that's fantastic.
Yes.
I think that should be done. But whether they get that in the middle of their chem lesson, or if they read that message during the middle of lunch or social studies, is there really, I think that message is still coming through. That message of caring and loving still gets to them.
There was also comments at the high school that talked about that sites were blocked when they were trying to use them for a Chromebook based on teacher assignments and stuff like that. So that's just something I'd want to make sure that isn't happening if that's the case. And certain
We've talked about that. They just reach out to you, right? And he's able to unblock them as needed.
And that falls to the instructor at that point. They should be reaching out.
Well, why are we signing items to our students if they can't get to it? That's the part I don't understand. Why are they blocked?
Sometimes it's just people's
if they haven't
lack
asked.
of communicating, right?
Yeah, it might be some of the advertisements they have on the site. There's a lot of reasons, and sometimes they're mislabeled.
If the teacher hasn't communicated to IT that it's a site they want to use, I think just as a general effect, the majority of sites will be blocked, not without them having been investigated. And so I think if a teacher knows the site they want to use, I think this was spelled out during one of our meetings, was that the step would be to approach the IT department and say, this is what I want to block. And he said he would welcome them to do that, right? Yeah,
there was also a significant number of educators that weighed in. Obviously, these were all anonymous. I don't know if they're educators from within our district who have students in the district, or educators from another district. And they were in favor, I would say option 1, or some variation of option 1. So
we have an educator right here, our middle school assistant principal, that spoke at the last meeting that is not in favor of cell phones in a classroom.
I mean, as a board,
and that's our current administrator.
If we just reflect on what we have been through, let's say within the past year and a half in terms of disciplinary stuff that we've had to handle from a board level, if we had more of a restriction, we probably wouldn't have had half of this.
Like I said in previous meetings, I'd like to move this in the next month or two to have it implemented come first of the year.
Yeah, it's a good idea. If we can come up with a decision across the board.
It's interesting when you ask for more data, it's not like you can ignore it or unsee it. Parents in each building overwhelmingly support their students, their children having access to the cell phone.
You say overwhelming, but it's a 50 split. I mean, it's only because we divided into extreme limitations, modified limitations, and then no limitations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the extreme and modified limitations are paired up against no limitations.
I have to do more reading. I didn't read all the comments, and there's more that I have to read up on, but certainly we appreciate the parents putting in. There's a lot of data there.
There was only 187 responses from the high school out of 500 students.
So usually in the world of statistics, that's what we have to go on.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought
those are the ones who responded in the window.
Yeah.
They're active and most likely would engage you in discussion on this topic.
Well, we're best for that too.
But
what were the percentages in the other two schools?
247 at the elementary school. It's a larger building.
And 187
at the high school, at the middle school.
So percentage-wise.
Now, going back to the middle school's had a policy in effect for a good number of years, and it's very successful in my mind. Now, why, as soon as they're trained in that respect through 3 years at the middle school, and once they reach the high school at ninth graders, then within a couple of months, they're into the same routine that the rest of the high school students are doing with cell phones in the classroom. In the middle school, they're restricted, and they've been for 3 years. Why is that sudden switch when they go from 8th grade to 9th grade? Is it being enforced, or is it, I don't know, option one, we're gonna be status quo. We might as well stop our discussion right now and move on to other items. My personal opinion on it.
As I've said all along, the data educationally coming across the boards is that it is detrimental. That unfettered use of the cell phones in the classroom has been detrimental to student education. And that's educational journals, we see it globally. These are the steps being taken because it's being recognized. And I think for us to say, and I wholeheartely understand that parents want a need to be in touch with their student and feel access to their student.
Yes.
However, I think as we're here for education and the formation of youth in a positive direction. And I think when all the data is pointing in the direction that this can be damaging unless controlled and educated, or it controlled in a way even one of the comments I think mentioned, the students need to be guided in proper use. And I think that's the method that we need to take.
There was a few comments about guiding them in the
right.
appropriate way to use technology and to use whether it's a school issued or a personal. That was.
And I think that's an argument against not eliminating them completely. I think that's a very valid argument.
And there's some comment, medical issues. We're not going to restrict a student for medical issues. I mean, not at all.
I know it's her first meeting. Then go ahead, Ms. Gebel. It sounds much better from you. And it might not be today, Kai, but we're really, one thing that came up when we were discussing this probably a couple of weeks ago or a few meetings ago was we need our student board to shed some light on this. And we know that the policy committee last year engaged some of the student bodies, some of the faculty in some discussion here at the high school. But do you have anything to share? And don't feel pressured. Otherwise, we wait for the next meeting.
Actually, I think I do have a student perspective on this. I think a few of you mentioned the Chromebooks needing to play a more important role in student learning rather than a cell phone, and I think that that's definitely true. I feel like when I was at the middle school, I used the Chromebook occasionally. Before COVID, the year before COVID happened, I used the Chromebook occasionally, but not all that much. And I feel like with COVID, there's definitely a higher importance placed on technology after that. But I definitely agree that the middle schoolers should be using the Chromebook rather than their phone for like anything they need with technology. And I think that the phone policy at the middle school was like definitely successful. Like I feel like as a student, I understood why they didn't want us to use our phones when I was at the middle school, because there were some, like I had friends who didn't even have a phone. So it made sense to me that that wasn't like allowed there. I think that what is your name, Barone or Baroni? I'm sorry. Barone. What Mr. Barone said about the transition from 8th to 9th grade and how like you go from an 8th grader who doesn't use their phone at all, like at school because it's not allowed, to a 9th grader who has sort of like unrestricted phone use. I think that that's definitely a good point, and I feel like the transition from middle to high school in that respect can be like something that's not often thought of. But I also feel like for like I'm sorry, students in my grade or juniors who are, you know, they're driving, they have their licenses, they have cars, they have jobs, they have all these adult responsibilities. I think they need to have adult like consequences for when they use their phones. Like at either of the jobs I've worked at, if you're at work and you have your phone out and you're doing stuff and you're not focused, your punishment is that you don't do your job well. Like you don't do your job well and you're not recognized for that. Like they don't want to put you on the schedule if you're an unfocused, like unmotivated worker. And I feel like for juniors and seniors who are starting their college search and going out into the world, I feel like they need to learn that on their own. I think that for freshmen and sophomores, definitely a stricter phone policy makes a lot of sense, especially to aid the transition from 8th to 9th grade. But I feel like for students who have all these new adult responsibilities, they need to learn how an adult handles things, which is they need to not be on their phone all the time. You don't, or I guess in some situations you do, but you don't have, you know, a teacher at your job telling you, oh, no, you gotta focus up right now because we're doing important stuff, because at that point as adults, people assume that you can control yourself. And I feel like if a 17 or 18-year-old or even a 16-year-old can't realize that they need to control themselves and behave in an academic setting, then I don't know. They should learn their punishment for that on their own.
So the challenge of policy, Kai, just so you know, is we can't differentiate between grade levels or ages of the children in this case. Policy is usually much broader and has to span all of those things. But truth be told, a penalty, I think the penalty or lack of penalty is perhaps what brought this to the board's attention in the first place, because I think that teachers do follow up with kids who are misusing their cell phone in class, whatever those classroom rules are. The difficulty is when the expectations are all over the place. So my classroom, you can't use it. It better be away under the covers. But classroom next door to me, you know, she uses it in her instruction. There's certain apps that's tough to gauge. You know, so while everybody, you know, a lot of faculty members want administration to come down hard on, you know, he was using the cell phone and we just said that they wouldn't. It's difficult to do that when the environment shifts from class to class.
I think Kai brought up an interesting point about equity. You know, if a teacher's assigning and giving assignments and utilizing apps or cell phones and we don't have equitable access, then all of a sudden we inadvertently are creating disparity among the student population's access.
I think the dialogue says, by and large, everybody has access to some type of smart device, by and large. So even, I don't know, they get them, I think, Ed. They get them.
No, specifically, she used that as an example.
Right. They get them. They got a smartphone.
Anybody else have any comments?
I mean, the other thing to think about is it's not just smartphones, right? There are a lot of parents talked about the smartwatches and also, restricting
It's gonna
those.
fall into that same
it falls
category.
into
The
this.
policy will
Devices,
address that.
that's
Yeah.
why they say devices, not laptop, watch, etc.
I think our discussion and the options that we put out there, except for option 3 at the high school being, a full restriction, we're nowhere near what some of our surrounding districts have already implemented. I mean, there's a bunch of them that already have full restrictions.
Right, and I don't think we're even talking about that.
We're not talking about that. I think we're trying to, and if it becomes, where it's beneficial to staff and students as we gauge it moving forward, and it shows improvement, in the social emotional end of it, I think we're doing our job as the Board of Education. I mean, I don't, we have to look, we're teaching students, everybody says career and college ready. Well, this is part of it. The career end of it, just like Kai said, you go out into the workforce. In our business, in the construction business, we can't allow our guys to use phones during the day. If they're climbing a ladder and all of a sudden their phone, they got to take one hand off and answer the phone? No way. OSHA requirements won't allow that for us. So they got to learn those things as they move forward. And I think it's in a lot of other occupations that, the doctor's in an operating room. Oh, hold on, time out. I gotta answer my phone. No, there's restrictions. You can't do that. I think, that's that career and college readiness. We got to start implementing that now and move it forward. I'm speaking, from my experience, just traveling all over. You go to a restaurant and everybody's on their phone. I mean, even young children are on their phone. It's not a place for it.
I even noticed, like at the supermarket, you'll have a young cashier, and in between, once they're done with you, they pick up their phone. Not have a good day, they pick up their phone to play on. So it's just, I think it's being able to teach and doing the right thing is not always the easy thing, and I think that's what we're struggling with, right? Doing
Absolutely.
What's right for the education process might not be the easy thing.
I'll speak from old school. I don't want someone to hide behind a keyboard and send me nasty messages. Let's discuss it. If there's an issue with me, even looking at Facebook and listen to these nasty comments out there, you're hiding behind a keyboard. I'll be frank with that. If there's something wrong the Board of Education is doing, or a teacher or someone else, address it personally with that individual. Don't hide behind a keyboard. It just baffles my mind, and I'm going to say I'm old school. You had an issue when we didn't have cell phones. We had a conversation. It was a conversation, and when you were a kid, sometimes you had that little fist fight. But that was a conversation you had.
He's not advocating fist fights.
I'm not. But it's reality when we were growing up.
Well, it's reality now. I mean, we already heard that by and large, the majority of physical altercations in the school have some type of online precedent to them. So,
Absolutely.
I think when we originally went to address this topic, we were talking about the issue of creating a policy that would give teeth to the classroom. So again, we don't want to see things as punitive. However, we did say that we didn't have a policy that gave educators teeth to say, put it away, it shouldn't be out. There was no policy to give them that authority, to give them that had a consequence behind it. And I think that was the intention when we gathered on all of this, right? And then you made me think about when you're talking about smartwatches. I think that would still fall into the realm of a personal classroom where, if the teacher, they have the full weight of the policy behind them to say, that smartwatch should be off, you shouldn't be touching that smartwatch right now, right? But that's also part of classroom management, and the teacher at that point could choose to ignore the issue if it's a small one, if it's not becoming a distraction. So it's not that there's punitive measures lying behind every infraction, but it's with the professional guidance of the instructor. But I think in terms of policy, we want to give them that teeth, give them something to give full weight and measure behind their authority.
And is there a sample policy that we've read that does that, in your opinion, Ed? In other words, beyond today, we need to have consensus. And
I was just going to bring that up.
4-3 is not consensus,
No.
but 4-3 is like, we might as well just hold steady.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I sense that we don't have consensus right now, so how can we?
I don't know about that, actually.
How can we move in the direction that we're all, in favor of that? I mean, I haven't heard from Jen. I'm not putting you on the spot, but I mean.
I'm still hearing all the different opinions. I'm not in favor of full restriction. All of the data from the parent surveys are not in favor of full restriction. And it sounds like the debate at the table is if the current policy is that we've left it to the individual instructors to manage it, it's apparently not working. So they're looking to the board, like Ed said, to give a little bit more gravitas to what the punitive measures would be. So if the policy has to be written in a way that still allows flexibility in the classroom so that teachers can have some measure of autonomy over whether that comes in, you can take your cell phone out, your smartwatch out, or it has to be restricted. I think that's what we're looking at. I don't know that the debate is full restriction or not full restriction, is what are the next level if the teacher can't get control. And like Mike said, period class 1, if I see that smartphone out, it's confiscated, but the next class, sure, put some music on while you're doing whatever you're doing. So if we can somehow level the playing field or allow some measure of, I don't even know, some measure of guidance so that all the teachers have to abide by it at a certain level, maybe that's what they're looking for. Because the survey from the faculty, I pulled it up here, the question was, is student cell phone use an issue in the classroom? And then have you experienced any difficulties? And it's like, yes, the student cell phone issue is, it's an issue, it's more than 50%, but have you experienced any difficulties? No, was overwhelming. So it's like they're conflicting responses. They agree that the cell phone is a distraction, but more than 50% said that it wasn't a problem.
Well, we currently don't have a policy restricting, we don't have one at all. It's very vague in addressing cell phone use.
So if the instructors are managing it individually by classroom, it's because we've just talked about it anecdotally that they're doing it and sort of writing it individually, and they're looking for us to set something across the school district. Is that what, I feel like that's what's it.
We don't have a policy, so it really has just evolved, right? So I think more so since COVID, more than anything else, obviously we're probably headed in that direction anyway, but we don't have a policy, so it really just has been left to each individual educator to determine how they want to use it in their class.
I don't think any of our discussions have really included full restriction to where it's like, don't bring them to school. It's always been a partial restriction environment, and by partial, I mean, in an instructional class, cell phones are not to be out or used. And they're not even to be on your person because they buzz and do all these wonderful things. So you gotta have it away. Your Chromebook is the primary device during those times. Now I bought at, hey, there's a great app and I wanna use it in class. The problem is, as soon as you introduce an area of gray with adolescence, it just kind of gets out of the bag, or it's all over the place. It's just not clear, and they'll muddy the water on purpose. So that app is a wonderful thing for a homework assignment. And they're out of here. They're using their cell phones when they're not in school. Put it there. In class, the Chromebook. So that's where it really does define that's where I was going with the discussion. Chromebook is in class. Phone is not on your person in all instructional settings. I'm okay with study hall, lunch, and all those other types for acceptable use for the cell phone. But in instructional settings,
it even migrates out into the sports
We get into
section.
the gray area.
That cell phone abuse is out there in the sporting world within our own district. I mean,
all the extra.
We've
talked about sideline
we have some
demeanor. We're not happy.
We have some sporting events that have one coach and there's 25, 30, athletes there. It's hard to monitor, and those that are sitting on the bench or on the sidelines a lot of them are on their phones.
Got 2 hours of practice.
It's a privilege to be an athlete. We have to treat it that way.
Mike, I do think you said something very interesting.
I did?
You did. So at the middle school, right, you have, it seems like very, I don't want to say strict, but it's very defined about the cell phone, right? So when they transition to the high school, that's where it's muddied. So, you know, and I think that that's some of what we're seeing now. A lot of what we're talking about, right, has to do with at the high school. And I think that's where there's that gray area, right? This classroom, you can do it. In this classroom, you can't. You can't do it in my classroom, but we have 5 extra minutes. So that is what muddies up when they can and they can't. And that's where that usage of personal, I think, devices spilled over.
That piece you just said about we have 5 extra minutes. Now I don't see why that wouldn't fit into the policy. Where if we say lunches and study halls. So if the teacher were to say, we're done with instruction for now, the remaining 5 minutes will be a study hall. And then that would qualify them to be able to take other
Instruction has already taken place for that.
Yeah.
I would encourage a review for an extra 5
Yes,
minutes.
if that's the instruction.
That's the teacher.
If we're saying
I
it's
agree,
messing
but
up
this is
our
what we're talking about.
education, then we shouldn't be giving them 5 extra minutes in a class of math or science. They should be teaching the whole length of the period, and the students should be engaged in that subject matter and learning for the full length of the period.
What struck me a little bit, reading the 79 responses from the high school and the 71 from the middle school, a lot of those responses mirrored each other. And yet, the middle school has a lot more restrictions than the high school. So it kind of just baffled me a little bit.
They account for child development.
Yeah.
Where in elementary, by and large, they listen to the adults. And in the middle school, that begins to change for lots of different reasons. And then we get them in the high school where
it's a negotiation.
it's a negotiation, right? Yeah. And let's not forget about how we got started on this was this idea of lost time, like the bickering that goes back and forth at the classroom level is a disservice to everybody there.
Tom, do you have anything you want to add?
Right off the bat, we mentioned study hall a couple of times as a possible acceptable space or time period, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of learning that goes on then. A lot of students are doing work during that time too. To me, that's almost, the younger brother or younger sister to a regular classroom.
Right. I'm an A student. I study. I don't have any homework in this particular study hall, as opposed to my friend who is failing 3 out of subjects and should absolutely be looking only at a textbook during that time.
Now, when they're within
individuals have to make choices.
Somewhat quiet time
I
too.
have no problem with lunchtime. I think transition time between classes, that's a dangerous time for people to be trying to get that device out. And now everybody in the hallway is doing it. So the noise amplification there is not good. Study halls, like I said, I can go back and forth on that.
I hear you.
If it's done respectfully, like in any case, if it's done respectfully, even in a classroom, especially when you have an instructor who's running a class, who can control it. And if they tell the students, put it away, they put it away. And it's, it's all, but a good part of that is who is in front of the classroom and how they control that.
I understand that, but I don't think that's as easy as all that, because I think even good instructors have constantly to correct and correct again and correct again. And as Mike had pointed out, that takes away from the instructional
Without
content.
a doubt, because it's not under control. And it might be an issue that if the student gets asked to leave the classroom and go down to the administrator's office.
But there's no policy to give it teeth at the moment.
Well, that's what we're trying to work on.
Exactly.
I think we can come to a consensus, and I would like to see it done to be implemented by the 1st of next year. I think we all kind of spoke to that level, I hope. It's all workable. There's 7 of us here. We should be able to come up with something.
Okay, so moving this forward, is there any other information, any additional information that we need? I think we pretty much asked for everything. We asked for supporting documents from surrounding districts. We got the survey from parents. We had the original surveys back from staff members. So we have a lot of documentation. We had some presentations from staff members at the high school at previous meetings. So is there anything else that we as a board need to come back and make a decision on how we want to craft the policy to not be totally restricted, but allow staff and administrators to be able to manage the cell phone use.
You know, Sue Gilmore comes to mind because she would always tell me, hey, it's not right to pull the board. But at this point, we have to have an idea. If we're at 5 to, we're talking about a partially restrictive policy here. So full restrictions off the table for everybody, we agree. It doesn't sound like, a lot of policy, it's really not necessarily, the policy will hit, but doesn't seem like it's gonna affect K-8. The area of impact we wanna see is the high school. So, I think that we need to have an idea if each board member is willing to engage in more discussion about a partially restricted policy, and then we gotta start crafting language. Right. Enough with let's start getting some drafts. And
can we ask that question tonight?
Can we define?
I don't want to put everybody on the spot, but if we can go through and just poll the board and get a feeling of where everybody sits right now.
Can we define the partially restricted? Are we talking outside of all instructional classroom, but allowed in study halls and lunch? Like what are we talking about in terms of partially?
I think that's what
restricted
is left to
We'll hammer
everybody's
that
opinion,
out.
right?
I think
And
we'll
that's
hammer
what
that
has
part
to
out,
be.
yeah. I mean, as Mike said, we have K-8, we have partially restricted, right? We already have that in play, K-8, and it seems to be successful. We were just talking about it.
K-5 is restricted completely.
Right.
If K-5 is completely.
6-8 is too, except, before they can have it on them, but they can't use it during the day at all.
Kathy, our transportation director.
Yes.
In the school buses, what are the bus drivers saying about that kind of activity on the bus? Is it too loud? Is it getting out of hand?
So we've had different scenarios, yes. We've run into with kids taking pictures of other kids, or if the older kids leave their phones on the bus and the younger kids find them taking pictures. That's mostly what it is, or videotaping something they shouldn't be videotaping. But it is, I think in our code of conduct, there is a policy that indicates no cell phones in use on the bus. And I'll have to pull that out and look at it, but it's somewhere in our.
But have you, from your staff, has anybody said anything?
Yeah, my staff comes to me and tells me.
But I think for the most part,
it's not a daily occurrence.
Okay.
Students don't use the voice end of a cell phone. It's all text or so you're not going to hear anybody talking on a cell phone on a school bus. It's quiet. Same way in the study hall, you're not going to hear them conversing back and forth. It's all going to be texting. So I don't leaving the phone to be your issue.
They have earbuds in, so the phones are
Yeah,
on.
anybody-
If they're playing something on their phones, they have
Show your age if
earbuds.
you
They're
hold it
not
like this.
listening.
There's no verbal conversation going on there. Mike had, you probably saw the policy that Mike had proposed as a draft. But getting back to, polling the board tonight to see where we are as far as each individual. I mean, I'll start it off. Option 2 in my mind is going to be the least restrictive to the student, but also give the opportunity for a learning environment in the classroom. Anybody else want to jump in?
I'll jump in. I'm for more restrictions the better. That's my opinion. I'm not for full restriction, but I am for more restrictions.
I find option 2 to be the best place to start. I think it gives us back to classroom time, and it still gives the students don't have to feel like they're having their phones taken away from them. They'll have them with them all the times. There'll just be appropriate places to use them. Parents will know that they can get messages to their students in those times and places. And this, if we put this in place and we find it's not being effective, we can always revisit it. And if people, if the students feel alienated, or if we find there are ramifications we didn't anticipate, we can definitely go back and revise. But I think, to me, that's the place to start.
Anybody else?
I can't say it any better than that. I'm interested in discussing about a partially policy.
Do we want to have legal draft a policy right now based on option 2 and craft it around that, and then we could take a look at it. Mike, you're on the policy committee. It's something that we want to do, or do we want legal to start the
I think the next step was to have legal propose a policy with, some of the.
Should we provide a basis?
So I did,
provide
I reached out to
basis,
legal to get any policies that they had, and that's the stuff that I gave you.
Okay.
The only ones that they've worked on, I believe, was it, sorry, I have it here somewhere. Right here. It was Beacon.
I was gonna say weekend.
But some already have.
And Valley
policies.
Central.
They have.
Valley Central's was very vague, though. It was
Valley Central talked about staff. Also.
staff,
Yeah.
right?
More staff.
I thought
I mean,
Beacons
if you want to
was
talk,
laid
we can
out.
start with the Beacon and the Valley Central and start with those policies. I mean, I can have legal redraft another thing, but if it's already been drafted, I think we have a basis.
Well, what's the difference? I'm not familiar enough to continue the discussion. However, I ask good questions. So what's the major difference between the two policies?
Well, Valley
Are they
Central.
partially restrictive, like what we're talking about?
Valley Central talks about pertains to employees. Beacon talks about the students. So I think if
And then
you
they
look
have
at
first
Beacons
offense,
and
second
use,
offense, third
yeah,
offense.
I think Beacons is a good starting point with adding in some additional context about. It breaks down by high school, middle school, and elementary school
Right.
level, and so I think that Beacon represents what it sounds like everybody is looking for.
So we'll have legal start drafting a policy. If you want to forward some input to Joel, I mean, we have 2 weeks for Nick, no, 3, we're not the first week, we're
The day of the 12th.
The 12th, so we got almost a month. So if you want to forward some comments to Joel that he can pass on to legal so they can craft a draft policy, go that route.
I want to,
I mean,
especially.
if you want to include staff into the policy, you want to include.
Let me, I'll read over this material and I'm gonna get in touch with Joel and the
Okay.
policy committee, and then we'll let the board know where the next step is. If we've got a good draft there,
So
sending
this
it to
was-
legal saying, make it a Highland policy in draft is one aspect, but I wanna read it.
This was either in this past Friday or the Friday before. I can
You don't have to
put it in again.
resend, I'll
Okay.
get it through email. It's,
None of our other policies address staff, do they? Isn't it all geared?
There's
we actually have a whole section
Yeah,
that
the whole
addresses staff, it's employee section, I think it's 6,000, I'm not sure. So if you go to our
I was
board
gonna say,
policies,
then
they,
you would wanna tuck it into that one if we decide to go that route.
But has that been an issue with administration? Do we find the staff's cell phone usage has been an issue? It's just, that's a barrier I find difficult because
a lot of times
these
the
are
supervisor will
also-
address the behavior
Yeah.
right then and there.
these are professionals who also have children. They have responsibilities outside of their job. You know, they have children themselves that they have to be responsive to.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we should
Yeah.
put it in, I just find it odd that the two policies would be mixed, I guess that's.
We're having a
Yes.
hard time just taking care of the one for the students.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not looking to open that can of worms at all.
I mean, there is some comments in there regarding staff too.
Yes.
Right. Some of those responses.
But again, that's something to address when there's an issue. We
That's
saw
not
an
what
issue
we're
with
here
the
for.
students and devices, and I think that's why we have to address this.
But it just wouldn't be a good move all around.
I agree completely.
Thank you.
So
I think that
students-
brings us to the next item on the
Okay. Much paperwork there, I gotta find it.
Yeah.
It's just miscellaneous.
I think it's
Yeah, it's miscellaneous. Anything for good and welfare of the district? Okay, we'll open. I think we covered it. We'll open the meeting up to public comment for general items. Like I said earlier, please state your name and address the board.
Do I just stand here?
You can stand right there.
Okay. Lisa Lavigny Graziano, 33 Sunnybrook Circle. Just a blurb on your restrictions on the bus. My daughter was on a bus where a kid had a phone. and averted a situation. So I would not restrict usage on a bus. They're more apt to call their parents, texting, yes, that, you know, I don't think most of them make a lot of noise. My daughter's phone is always on silent, but don't take that away from the kids if they need help on a bus. Just take that into consideration when you make your policy.
Well taken. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Heather Gaudreau. Some of you might remember me from last year. My son was involved in some sexual harassment with the modified football team. And first off, I want to say I am not anonymous on Facebook. I am very much a direct forward person. I am not a keyboard warrior. When I have a problem, I want to address it, I want to speak of it, and I want to try to find a resolution. My son was in the locker room last week, and he was pantsed yet again by another student. And this time, the coach was present, the assistant coach was present, and saw what happened along with some 9th grade students. And it was then brought to the head coach and was told what happened, but no one informed me, no one called me, no one said anything about it the day that it happened. My son did not even tell me, which I understood because he did tell me the next day. But before the game they had the following day, the coach had the kid who, I'm not going to name names, nor am I going to name the coach. You know who's employed here. The kid apologized to my son per the coach, and then was told by the coach that if he was uncomfortable with the situation, that he would cancel the rest of football for the year, and that none of the other students would be able to play. Now, we're falling right back into the whole bullying, but now it's again by the same coach that was rehired this year for modified football, and there was no accountability for what happened last year. Now, I was assured by Joel, by Frank, and by the principals that this would be addressed and that the coach would be terminated and no longer be part of Highland football. Then I read and I hear from other parents that this coach has resigned. And this is the reason why I'm here. I wanted to take a minute and address the school board along with our friends, families of the school district. And as a mom of a 14-year-old, I think it's safe to speak for the hundreds of other parents when I say this. As our children grow up, they are shaped by their experiences, environment, their friends they keep, and the adults who serve as guidance, as well as coaches. At school or attending any extracurricular activities. Football in particular has become a large part in my family and has a big influence on my son's development. I'm very upset to say that my son returned home from school and shared yet another incident that happened in the school locker room. My initial response was anger, frustration, and discuss with the school, with these so-called teammates my son plays football with. And then I took a moment to appreciate that my son was able to tell me this time, because that wasn't the case last year when I first heard about this. Thankfully, my son has learned from those past traumatic events and was able to come to me this time. My problem, and the reason for me speaking tonight, is to share my concern with how this is still happening. To my surprise, the football coach was actually present during most of this recent incidents and did not inform me of any of the parents of this event. I think it's appalling that the school, who serves as our children's protectors, did not learn from the previous incident, and that my son is finding out himself in these similar situations. This is not acceptable. I should have been notified immediately, just as any other parent should. Thankfully, the school finally decided to take action and assure me that the coach would be fired. As you can imagine, the sudden cancellation of the last week's practice sparked concern of other parents who have children on that team, mostly because there's no notice sent out. There were no updates, no phone calls, no emails. This needs to change, and I hope that the school can address the situation tonight so we can continue to make progress in making sure our children are not in this situation ever again. I don't want this to be swept under the rug again. I want there to be a resolution. I want to be able to fix this problem. All three of those coaches were present when the head coach said something to my son, and this is very concerning to me, because now one of those coaches are the head coach for the same football team. I sit there at practices a lot and watch because I'm scared. I'm very scared what's going on, what's happening. I'm tired of all of this. I want my son. I wish that he would just quit, but he doesn't want to. And the family reminded me today how important football is in their lives, in this family's lives. But to me, it seems like it's a therapy session, not only for my son, but for other kids on the team. I forgot that for a minute, and I felt bad because one of the moms was upset with me because I was ruining their son's football experience because of what happened yet again. Please help me fix this. Please let these kids be able to trust in someone. Let them know that if something's wrong, they can talk to the coach and they'll fix it. I know football is a disciplined sport. And these coaches are setting examples for our kids. And they're not good ones right now. Please, someone go there and look. And last year, the thing was the middle school and the athletic department, there's a disconnect. Please make it connect and help these kids. They don't need to be going to therapy because of football. None of them do. And a lot of them do. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it. Not one email. Not a memo, nothing. I was just told he's going to be fired and he will no longer be part of the football program. Is that the program for the high school as well? Because he's the assistant coach there. Is that the program for flag football for the girls? Because he's the coach for that as well. And then I read he resigns. That's not true, is it?
You can't address personnel issues. I'm sorry.
But please address it. Please fix this. I don't want you to cancel football. These kids really want to play. But please give them some better guidance, a better coaching staff. My son is looking forward to going to the high school because there's 2 wonderful coaches there. And I'm nervous because the kids that assaulted him are there and part of the football team. But he's not. He feels safe because there's 2 really good coaches, he keeps assuring me. Please address this and please fix this.
We all appreciate your reaching out to us and sharing that with us, and we are very much listening. So,
Because in this agenda, it says that you're putting another coach that's there. I wish that someone could go there and actually watch some of the practices. I think you would be just as appalled as I am with some of the language they use. These are 7th and 8th and 9th graders. These are our future football players for Highland. Our future that we have a brand new field out there for them. Shouldn't we invest in some good coaching and help them? Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
I'm sorry, I just need to get Lisa's last name.
Oh, Livigny Graziano. L-I-V-I.
come on, everyone knows that.
Graziano.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close public comment. And again, with all public comment, we do as a board take it all seriously. Unfortunately, with some issues, we can't discuss a lot of it in public, but we do discuss a lot in our own ways in executive session, so we don't ignore comments. With that, anybody have anything else they want to address? Or can I ask for a motion to adjourn? Motion by Heather, second by Jen. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Thank you all for coming out.
Take a picture. Unless you want to be on. Lisa.